Hi, I'm Dr. Chris Danielson, instructor of low brass at Westfield State University. I'm also the principal trombone of the Valley Winds and the New England Repertory Orchestra. In this video, I'll walk you through some tips that will help you prepare for the upcoming district band and orchestra audition. The requirement for this year's Western District Band audition is 2 selections from Bel Canto Studies, music of Rossini, Bellini, and Donizetti, edited by Ralph Sauer. So what does bel canto mean anyway? Bel canto means beautiful singing or beautiful song, and is a term associated with Italian opera. It's important to always keep the elegant lines and expressive phrasing of opera at the heart of your interpretation. To internalize this style, I suggest listening to some arias by Rossini, Bellini, and Donizetti. There's also a long tradition of using operatic music to practice phrasing on low brass instruments. YouTube is full of people playing music by Bordoni on the trombone, tuba, and euphonium. I'd highly suggest listening and incorporating elements of this style into your interpretation of these bel canto selections. The first solo selection is relatively slow, a quarter note equals 72. Don't be in a rush and take your time in these lovely phrases. You should always pay attention to rhythm and tuning, but this selection gives you an opportunity to really show off your beautiful tone. Practice singing this music with your voice and bring what you discover to your instrument. In contrast to the lyricism of number 1, number 4 provides more playful material to explore. This music is faster, quarter note equals 108, and requires a nimble technique. This is best achieved through close attention to the articulations. Make tongue notes, especially ones with staccatos, short, and emphasize slurred notes, making sure they are really slurred. Measure 18 marks a change in the music, and it's important to highlight this contrast with your performance. All of a sudden, much longer groups of notes are slurred together, and there are no short notes at all. Bring the lyricism of number 1 back, if only for a moment. This contrast helps the listener to not get bored with the relatively repetitive material in the rest of this selection. I like to tell my students that the scales part of the audition is the easiest place to get points. This is because most students do a poor job of preparing their scales. Get these scales memorized as soon as possible and run through them every time you take your horn out of the case. Preparing scales provides a great opportunity to discuss using the 4th valve on the tuba and using the 2nd valve on the bass trombone. I've given lessons to many students who didn't know what the 4th valve on their tuba was for. In addition to allowing you to play some new lower notes, it gives you more access to valve combinations that are better in tune. Instead of playing 1 and 3 for C and low F, play 4. And instead of playing 1, 2, and 3 for B and low E, play 2 and 4. Always use these fingerings. They are always much better in tune. If your horn doesn't have 4 valves, don't worry, you can still play everything you need for this audition. One of the things that differentiates the bass trombone from the tenor trombone is the 2nd valve. Almost all modern bass trombones have a 2nd valve tuned in G flat. During the evolution of the bass trombone, there were many variations, including 1, 2, or no valves. To play the material that is asked for on this audition, you'll need to use the 2nd valve. How and when to use the valves is a complicated topic, so we are just going to scratch the surface. With both valves down, you can play low D in 1st, low D flat in about 2nd and a half, low C in 4th-ish, and low B somewhere nearly in 6th position. You'll have to use your ears and maybe a tuner to figure out exactly where these notes are. Don't be surprised if the horn feels stuffy with both valves engaged. It takes practice to feel comfortable in this register. Some of these scales go quite low. If you can't quite reach these low notes yet, don't worry. You can work your way down to them systematically while practicing these scales. The first step is to realistically determine how low you can play comfortably. I'm going to use the B-flat scale as an example, and I'm going to assume that low E-flat is my lowest comfortable note. Start from the middle register and go down, but go no lower than your lowest comfortable note, in this example E-flat. For all the notes that are lower than E-flat, replace them with E-flats. Do this for a week or two, and then add the next note down, which would be a D. Once that becomes comfortable, keep adding notes every week or two until you can make it to the lowest note of the scale. This process also works to shore up the high register. Always start from an easy middle register note and work your way up or down. Another challenge is chromatic scales. These can be quite tricky on both the bass trombone and the tuba. My suggestion for practicing this chromatic scale is to work one triplet at a time, including the first note of the next triplet as well. Repeat each triplet several times before moving on to the next one. Next, practice larger groupings like 2 triplets or 4 triplets. Really focus on the first note of each triplet. These notes will be your guideposts when you put the entire scale together. The only way to get better at sight reading is to do it. Do a little bit every day using etude books such as the Arbon, Rochu, Bloom, Slama, and Samara. There's an endless supply of music out there. Playing duets is also a great way to work on this skill. My sight reading improved tremendously when I joined a community band that didn't rehearse and played a new set of music every week. When you prepare to sight read, make sure you check out all the important information the score gives you before you try to play it. Many people find the acronym STARS, S-T-A-R-S, helpful in doing this. S is for key signature. Make sure you check the key signature. T is for time signature and tempo. A is for accidentals. Scan the passage to see if there are accidentals you need to watch out for. R is for rhythm. Do you see any confusing rhythms that you should figure out before you start? The last S is for signs and symbols. Look at any articulations, slurs, ties, crescendos, first and second endings, and anything else on the page. Once you've scanned for all these things, find the hardest looking spot. Think about how fast you can play it, and start at that tempo. Thank you so much for checking out this video. I hope that these tips were helpful, and good luck at your audition. We can't wait to see you at Westfield State. Now go practice.